Hello, everybody. Jamie Thomas with you on this lovely Sunday morning, at least in the Central Time Zone. I'm more than happy to. I just realized I have to add Sarah Lesky into the whole scheme of things. And welcome, Sarah. Sorry about that. It's my first day on the job. Please unmute your microphone so everyone can hear your melodious voice on this Sunday morning. I'm not sure. Where are you again? I'm trying to remember.
Remember, I thought you were supposed to unmute the
Um,
microphone. Is that
I
not?
forget these things. So,
Okay.
okay, I like this. Whoa, that's a lot of us in the room.
That is. What are we doing here right now? You adjust.
No, it's good. It's good. I think we have the right thing. So hold on a second. No, that's terrible. How about this or this? Oh, there.
There you
That's
go.
easy. When
I
we
want
don't have
you
our studio or a producer. Oh, wait, we don't have a producer. So let me think about that. So it's just us doing this.
wow.
Um,
Feisty at 11:30 in the morning on a
yeah, yeah.
Sunday. Jeez.
Well, we had a lot of
Nice.
viewers the other day, and we're kind of a big deal. Hoping for bigger and better things going forward. Jets taking on the Carolina Hurricanes in the final game of a 4-game road trip, and we have Mike Maniscalco coming up, the voice of the Hurricanes, to discuss probably the wildest trade on trade deadline day, with Mikko Rantanen going to the Dallas Stars, and of course Logan Stankoven and a couple of first-round picks coming the other way for a Carolina Hurricane team that was probably one of the Stanley Cup favorites to start the year and probably moved themselves up the board a little bit by acquiring Mikko Rantanen from the Colorado Avalanche. We'll get into that with Mike a little bit later in the program, but in the meantime, let's talk about game number 3 of the road trip. A new face was in the lineup. Not so new face, I should say. So the Jets fans very familiar with Brandon Tanev, but the Jets running away 6-1 over top of the New Jersey Devils, a very good hockey team. But man, the old power play that we were concerned about, well, not me, of course, but some people that were worried about, looks pretty good. And the offense that had dried up for a 3-game stint, or I'll even go back 4 games, has 10 goals in the last 2 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 10-2 is what they've outscored their opponents with their win in Philadelphia and Carolina. And, Josh Morrissey had spoken after the game saying that they didn't like that mini slump essentially that they were on, and they wanted to get back to their style of game, relying on their structure and their system. And we saw it more. And you mentioned, I mean, the power play got going again. And great to see Brandon Tanev in the lineup. There's a lot to talk about in the next 30 minutes as we get you ready for this afternoon's game. It's a 4 p.m. local or 4 p.m. Central start time against Carolina as they close out this road trip. But there's been a lot to like about it. And let's talk a little bit more about that game, Jamie. And when you looked at it, I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned the power play, but what was it that stood out to you most that we've seen in the last couple of games that maybe was different from earlier that allowed the Jets to get back to that structure?
Um, I'll even go back. Like, you look at the game against Philadelphia. I don't think Philadelphia was ever in the game against the Jets. That's a pretty easy one to say. New Jersey in the second game of a back-to-back, you thought might have a better opportunity to take advantage of the win of the Jets playing the night before, but Winnipeg's trip wasn't as grueling as it ordinarily is. I don't think New Jersey was really in this one either. And even when they made it 3-1 in the third period, Winnipeg just took over from there. So when you add somebody like Brandon Tanev to your fourth line, again, the depth that you've already have quite a lot of, and you add more pieces to that in somebody like Brandon Tanev, who fit in immediately with Morgan Barron and Alex Iafallo, with Morgan Barron playing center. I think you are, you add some more quickness to your lineup, and again, more options in terms of a lineup for Scott Arniel to set things up. But I mean, they look solid from beginning to end. And that little fire plug known as Brandon Tanev, who will have a little runway moment with here momentarily, just fit in like a glove. Loved watching all the video, of course, from the runway of how happy everybody was to have him back. The fist bump with Helly before the game, him running in like the extra guy, the reinforcements was coming in, was great to see. So we'll show that to you guys momentarily. But to me, this looks like a team that has completely turned a corner after some, we'll call it, struggles. Although lots of teams in the NHL would love to have the struggles the Winnipeg Jets do, and they're still 8 points up on Dallas, who lost last night in Edmonton. Of course, Dallas will be here on Friday, and the Jets will have a home game Tuesday against the Rangers. In the meantime, it'll be the Hurricanes here this afternoon.
Yeah, looking forward to the homestand that's coming up for the Jets with, as you mentioned, Rangers on Tuesday and then Dallas. They still have 2 games against Dallas to play throughout this regular season. Dallas sitting second in the Central Division. Colorado's moved into the third. So you can imagine if things were to stay that way, what that first round matchup would look like. When you look at the wild card, that puts Minnesota in the first wild card spot. Here's how tight things remain. And I know
Mhm.
that we've spoken about it often, but you've got in that second wildcard spot, Calgary at 70 points, Vancouver at 69, St. Louis at 69, Utah's right behind there. And I think one of the things that we heard from, Kevin Cheveldayoff was that after the deadline about how sometimes players you thought were there and then all of a sudden players weren't available for acquisitions, and he had spoken to us earlier in the week. You and I had talked at length about it, as had, really so many of the media members that were discussing the trade deadline heading into there, that there were so many teams that were still in the mix that it really impacted what teams were able to do, and the options that were available on the market. But let's talk a little bit, there's no morning skate for either team today
Mhm.
because it's the 5 p.m. local start. There will be no pregame availability with Scott O'Neill. So, as I have said many times already, you're going to want to watch
Yep.
warm up. You're going to want to listen to Mitchell Clinton and Paul Edmonds and look on social media as well for the updates if there are any changes to the lineup. But with the way that they played and the way that Brandon Tanev was able to assert himself in that
Mhm.
lineup, and on the ice, I don't know if we're really expecting to see any today.
Another thing too is like the whole or one of the key reasons why Tanev was added to this lineup is to help the penalty kill, and the penalty kill was solid. Um, the other day, they looked fantastic again. So that if there's any kind of Achilles heel for the Jets, and we're being picky at that point, it's the penalty kill had to be a little bit more. I'll get better. Of course, Luke Schenn still hasn't been added to the mix just yet, but that will change here in the near future. But in the meantime, that was a great showing on the penalty kill against a team, although they didn't have Jack Hughes, has some pretty good offensive firepower and had moments where a power play goal would have brought New Jersey back in the game, but the penalty kill was solid. And again, Brandon Tanev fitting in just fine in that department. So there's not much to tell her. And Scott O'Neill noted afterwards didn't look like a guy that didn't fit in or didn't understand what needs to be done. So it's exciting to see that part of it. And another solid start from Connor Hellebuck, although the guys in front of him defended really well. There wasn't too many big opportunities for New Jersey. So it will be important for Winnipeg to continue to do that. So we're not quite sure who the starting goaltender will be. Last time these two teams played, it was 3-0 for the
And it was
Jets.
Eric Comrie,
Eric
yeah.
Comrie was the starting goaltender and got the shutout in that one. So it is, as you say, this one. You didn't practice yesterday. They gave us nothing to work with again. So at least in this upcoming homestand with the 2 games, we'll have something to work with in that aspect. But today is a bunch of guests. But I think it's a fair assessment to say that I don't outside of maybe between the pipes, it's hard for me to see them making any changes to the lineup after how well they played the other night in New Jersey.
Well, on Friday when you and I spoke, JT,
Mhm.
after trade deadline, and it was before Kevin Cheveldayoff spoke, before Scott O'Neill's availability as well. But we did know that Brandon Tanev was on way to Jersey. We didn't know for sure if he was going to play, and there was so much going on, and we had such great help from Ken Wiebe and Paul
Yes.
Edmonds
Yeah.
breaking down the trades and where they felt that Brandon Tanev and Luke Schenn would be able to help, where they would be inserted into the lineup as well. We didn't get a real chance to really respond to it. Now that deadline has passed, we've been able to look around the league. We've been able to see the different acquisitions that were made, and now you're really in that push to game 83 and beyond. When you look at the way that what Kevin Cheveldayoff was able to do, what he added to the lineup, do you like the acquisitions? Do you think that it addressed some of the needs that they had?
Well, I think it's fair to say, like, some before heading into the deadline, there was discussions that maybe you can help a 2C. I know Brock Nelson's name was thrown in the mix there quite a bit. But to answer your question, Brandon Tanev, it was depth and more depth on the back end and certainly up front. And I think you've done that. And, just we've talked about this a little bit to start the show is, you know exactly what you're getting with Brandon Tanev. and that makes it a lot easier to work with. He already has chemistry with Adam Lowry. If that option moves itself, see, that's another thing too, is you can move Brandon Tanev up and down your lineup and not have to worry about that part. So that if there's an injury in any respect here, he's going to be okay. And then Luke Schenn, going back to their need to address the penalty kill a little bit more, as it's in the middle part of the National Hockey League. That's what you're getting from Luke Schenn, another shot blocker, a guy that's going to clear the front of the net, a guy that adds some toughness to your lineup as well. And I thought something that they were lacking in that aspect, and now you've added some of that for the playoffs when things get tough and gritty, which is what you're going to get in any Central Division battle going down the stretch here. And they've got these 2 games coming up against Dallas. So yes, to answer your question, I like what Kevin Cheveldayoff did, and you could tell the way he talked that there were other deals that they thought were there that didn't necessarily work out. Jake Evans was a discussion, and then he signs an extension with Montreal when we had Chevy on the other last week. He kind of alluded to that in not so many words about guys signing extensions that take them off the trade board. So,
and same thing that you needed. This is one of the biggest things that I think that when you look at it, and we spoke about it going into the deadline, is that you need not just 2 to tango in this respect, but
yes.
often you look for a number of these players, and Brock Nelson included, was that if they have no movement clauses in their contract, then you need to get them to buy in to move as well. And one of the things that Kevin Cheveldayoff said when he spoke to the media when he arrived in New Jersey was that he does think that they got harder to play against. Hardness was an element that they didn't have before. And as you broke down where you think that Brandon and Luke are able to help, that's certainly something that they acquired there. Regarding Brock Nelson, we were in it from the perspective of doing everything we could, put a really strong foot forward, essentially, but some things are out of their control. And there have been reports that out there that Brock Nelson did not want to allow the trade to Winnipeg.
Right. And there's even further discussion that he didn't even want to go to Toronto either. So there's just maybe it's Canada here. I don't know. And that's the whole thing with Brock Nelson. And Sarah, we've heard these types of stories before. And the whole thing is you want people that want to be here. And that goes as far back to Rick Bowness saying that over and over again. So if true, then I think the Jets did the best they could in that aspect. And still, I think the key part too is even though they were wanting to get rid of their first round pick if it was necessary, they still have that, and they still have all their big name prospects. So I think it's,
and you didn't lose anybody, and you didn't take anyone off of your roster, which I think you look at the chemistry that this group has had, and sure, do you always want to try to improve your team? Of course you do.
Yes.
But this is a team that has had success working by committee. And just because they weren't able to acquire maybe a second line center, does not mean that this team is not better off now than what it was pre-deadline with positions. And there is something you always hear, and we've discussed that the importance of chemistry. And you talked about some of, you look at Colorado and all the players that they added. And so when you're adding so many players in a short period of time, there's the potential for it to go great. There's the potential for there to be hiccups as they try to adjust to each other and new systems and new line mates. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. But I think the enthusiasm from Brandon Tanev, he spoke afterwards that he knew he was getting traded, didn't know where. He'd been smiling all day, he said on Friday. And it's a little bit different than when he was last year, obviously. But at the same time, he said it's very similar as well. And our crews were there catching all of the behind the scenes moments, which will be featured in an upcoming runway. But there's also just a small sample and taste for Jets fans of what that day was like.
Hands back together. Finals. Oh, dude. He's going to play, obviously, a role with us on the penalty kill. Kind of go day to day here. And but, like you said, he's got the familiarity. He's been played in Winnipeg, started there, knows a lot of these teammates, which really helps. We like the fact that he can come in and have a smooth transition.
We use him tonight?
We're waiting to see. Come on, baby.
What's it been like the last 12 hours?
Yeah, it's been definitely busy. It's a busy time of the year, especially when you're part of it. But at the end of the day, it's all smiles coming back to the place I started my career, to a great team and a great group of guys. So excited to be back here in Winnipeg.
He brings a lot of energy. Great forechecker, great PKer. Just another element of speed to our lineup.
The trade deadline is now behind them. Their team is set. Brandon Tanev is here. Luke Schenn will join the team shortly. And this is the group that is going to hopefully take this franchise to the promised land.
I mean, it's a very good team, and it's an easy team to come into when there's so many good players. But I mean, when you go out there, you put a familiar jersey on that you're so used to. You're excited to play, and like I said earlier, I've had a big smile on my face all day.
Happy to be here, boys. A lot of fun out there, so let's keep it rolling.
I think we need to get Tanev a new undershirt.
Okay, it was the first thing I thought when I saw the Beast too.
Okay, so you make a little. I'm sure you're financially able to purchase yourself another shirt, but I understand. It's probably a good luck thing. But it's funny how those things, he's giving the speech and you're like, dude, what's wrong with your shirt? It's like he was like the Incredible Hulk one day and just ripped out of it and has left it that way. But it's that was a great behind the scenes look at Runway and just how quickly he fit in and how happy everybody was to see. And, Josh Morrissey had a big smile on his face when they were asking him after the game about that. Also, Josh Morrissey hit 50 points again, his fourth consecutive year of 10 or more goals. So he's got that, and Kyle Connor hit 80 points. He's on pace for 103. So the accolades and the personal records or personal achievements are racking up right now for this team. And another thing I think might, and I'm just speaking for the players in this aspect, is the fact that a lot of guys at TSN, who shall go nameless, had the Jets in their top 5 of Stanley Cup favorites before the trade deadline, and a lot of them removed Winnipeg from the top 5 after the trade deadline. And I think it was a lot to do with, Brad Marchand going to Florida, the Panthers, Tampa making some trades. So I'm curious to see how that all works out. But Dallas got a big bump up after the trade of Mikko Rantanen, bringing him in as well. And then Colorado, of course, restructuring their entire lineup. So we'll again, you don't win on trade deadline day, and that's something that everyone's going to have to keep in mind. And I see that in the chat room as well, and you've mentioned it. No Stanley Cup has ever won on trade deadline day.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen in the past, we have seen a number of teams, and I saw someone in the chat say, you use Nashville as an example of the team that we thought had won free agency, and then obviously it hasn't worked out the way they wanted to. So this is a cohesive group that we see with the Jets, and certainly there's a lot of incentive for this group to take that next step, and there's a lot of belief within that room as well. On the road, they are 21-11-0 so far. They are 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. They are playing against a Carolina team, much like the Jets are great at Canada Life Center. Carolina's great at home right now. They've had 100 consecutive sellouts. They are 24-7-1 so far, and they're sitting second in the Metro. So this should be an entertaining game this afternoon.
So last time we had our good friend Mike Maniscalco on, he showed off his knowledge of the 80s. He was quite astute in that department, and we said we're going to have to bring you on eventually to reassess your, reprove your title in that department. But I think we're going to bring him on for more important things than just talking about the 80s. I'm sure he'll show off a little bit as we go along in this discussion. We also have him in a more comfortable spot instead of on the concourse at Canada Life Center. He's able to, I know he's got a big meeting coming up, so I promised him we'll get him out on time, because you cannot miss production meetings. Sarah Lesky knows that better than anybody. Producers are flat out nasty. That's who they are. That's how they get things done. And without further ado, is our good friend Mike Maniscalco joining us now. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Producers do not like it when you miss the meetings, period.
Yeah, it's this might dip into the 70s, but early 80s. The Incredible Hulk with Lou Ferrigno. You wouldn't like producers when they're mad. So, and we've all, for whatever reason, you could have no power. You could be wherever. If you are late for a meeting, that's worse than actually robbing your producer's house, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, it's way worse, actually. If you
great to see you guys again. Yeah.
Good to see you again, my friend. I know a lot has happened for the Carolina Hurricanes in a short amount of time. Mikko Rantanen was traded, and it felt like he barely got to know the guy. He was brought in Then the Four Nations Face-Off came along, and then he played a little while longer, and now is a member of the Dallas Stars. Just overall thoughts on what the return was for Mikko Rantanen with the Dallas Stars.
You know, and I wish that everything could be, put into a vacuum and everything's evaluated separately. If you look at just the return for Mikko Rantanen to the Dallas Stars, you get Logan Stankoven, who I know the Stars have been high on for a long time. And this is a player who can produce offense. He's not a 6'4" winger. He's 5'8", but the way he plays fits in with what the Carolina Hurricanes do. And then you get 4 draft picks for a player that you basically knew you had to move. And I think that's one of the things when I look at the return. Yes, the Canes could have held on to Mikko Rantanen and tried to make a run through the playoffs with him. And it's funny, we always have to right away, who won the trade? Let's trade the trade. And this is where it's not in a vacuum, because the Canes actually did give up Marty Necas and Jack Drury to get Mikko Rantanen. So if you want to, you can try to flip this however you want. The tough thing is, the Canes swung for the fences and they connected. You bring in Mikko Rantanen. This is the one thing that everybody, all the pundits, for years are saying, oh, they got to do this, they've got to add that. Well, they did. And now the stories are coming out. And, Elliot Friedman, who, for my money, is the best in the business in any sport, breaking stories and getting to the bottom of things, kind of got the news out there, which was, well, yeah, the Canes did their due diligence, before they made the trade, saying, hey, would Rantanen be open to signing in Carolina? But did Colorado say that? Did the agent say that to get him moved? So there's this whatever. So, it's the A for the effort for the Canes, but the return when you knew that it got to the point you had to move him, I think is pretty good. And then we'll see what the Canes do with the picks, because now they walk into the draft with all this capital and you don't have to draft players with it. You can move that away and bring in somebody. And we know that really the offseason is when those big trades really do get made.
I think I saw, Mike, that the governor had even chimed in on the Rantanen trade. So maybe I don't need to ask what the mood is around there. But when you look overall, and not just beyond what happened with Rantanen, when you look at now this stretch run down into the postseason, they're currently sitting second. What is the mood like be around the team? What is the mood like around the fan base, do you think?
Well, the fan base, and you guys know this in Winnipeg, the stories that are out there. Nobody wants to sign in Winnipeg, and it's hard. You got to overbid, all of those tropes. And there's a little bit to it, but it's not the full story, right? You hear that all the time. And, just take a look at the job that Kevin Cheveldayoff did this year, keeping everybody, getting Connor Hellebuck wants to come to America. He's an American. Well, no, he wanted to stay in Winnipeg and finish the job. So, that is a mood that seeps in with the fan base here in Carolina. Why didn't this guy want to play here? It's a great place to play. It's a great coach. So the fans understandably have a big chip on their shoulder and a beef with Mikko Rantanen over this. I think in the room now that it's done, and Jordan Martinook said it, he goes, it wasn't a black cloud, but it was something that was hanging over the team. And now you just move on. And you get ready for the playoffs and the stretch run that you have right here. So the mood around the team yesterday, honestly, was great. And they had a practice. Everybody was upbeat. Everybody was chirping. Brent Burns turns 40 today. So all of the young guys, most notably Seth Jarvis, was calling him old man. So it was almost like, I don't want to say this because Mikko Rantanen is a fantastic hockey player, but it's like somebody took the sage in the room, if you're into that stuff. I'm not, but I've watched enough. As you guys now know, I've watched enough TV in my lifetime. This house is clean, one of those kind of feelings. Yeah. The players just moved on from it. The fans understandably are upset because hey, this is a great place to play. Your friend is on this team. You played for Finland with Sebastian Aho. But you know what? Things on paper will look great, but sometimes in reality they don't work out. And that's just kind of how I looked at this. It's and Rod Brindamore said it yesterday as well. When he got here, you could tell he didn't want to be here. He had his sights set on he wanted to go someplace else. So it's again, sometimes you swing for the fences. And some real famous Canadian, I don't know if I can say his name on your show right now, was credited with saying you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So
Yeah.
I keep up on politics a little bit too, so I wasn't sure if I could say that name or not. But,
This
but
is
yeah,
a trust tree, Mike. This is a trust tree.
We're trust tree. We're a trust tree in the nest. Okay.
Yeah, everything's all right. Everything's in the nest. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's it. And I think now that it's done for the team, it's done. They're moving on to what they have to do. For the fans, it's going to be very interesting when the Dallas Stars show up here in Raleigh. And by the way, Mikko Rantanen is upset not just the Canes fan base, but also the Avalanche fan base.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how quickly that changes.
Yeah.
I think it all falls into the same category. If you want to be here, great. If you don't, see you later.
Yeah.
Last one for you, because I know you got to get out of here. Jets and Canes, what are you looking forward to today?
Kind of the same game that we saw at Canada Life Center. Only I would like to see the Hurricanes score a goal as their play-by-play guy. But
yes,
I loved everything that the Jets did or didn't do at the trade deadline, because they know how good this team is. They added the right reinforcements. For the Canes, I want to see this be a track meet. I want to see the Canes play and push the tempo on the Jets. And, you could say you're playing with fire when you do that because of what Winnipeg brings to the party. But I'm looking for the Canes to really get back to their game. And they've started to get to it. There was this, we can say for whatever reason, there was this, how come the Canes aren't playing better? They've won 3 in a row in their last 2 games. They've really gotten back to that team that we saw in October and November that started the year. So can they stay on this pace? And this is a big test, because if the Canes want to measure themselves, this is the measuring stick right now in the league. This is the best team in the league. So let's see where they are after this afternoon.
Mike, appreciate the time, man. Get to that meeting. It's very important.
I know.
I'm sure you're going to learn something you never knew before.
That is 100% correct. I am sure that I am not going to hear the meeting start the same way it has the last 300 times.
You know what producers also love? When they get called out publicly.
Oh, I know. That's even better.
They have a big
but I will say,
all producers watching, I have stayed quiet. I want you to know that.
I will say, if my producer Jim Mallia is watching, this is not lip service. He is the best in the business when it comes to the regional producers. He nails it every time. So when I can have a little bit of fun at Jimmy's expense, I don't mind doing it. So, and now his name is out there for everybody to know.
Yeah.
There you go. Exactly.
He could have went nameless. See you later.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thanks,
Enjoy the great call today. It's Mike Maniscalco joining us on his way
Always so entertaining.
You know what? That is unbelievable. I noticed how quiet you were being. I noticed. Don't think I didn't notice you were not in on the producer slagging at all.
No.
You are a politician at heart. That's what I've
noticed. I see James putting in the chat, this meeting could have been an email. We have all been involved in those before, James. And I also, I was going through the chat, which it's great to see so many of you involved in the chat. Again, we always appreciate it.
People in the chat group are amazing.
They are fantastic. But I saw one person, and Larry, why do people keep thinking bringing in better players will hurt the chemistry? But I don't think that that's necessarily what anyone is saying, Larry. I think that, when you look at it from the Jets' perspective, saying that they tried to bring in and address all needs, they weren't necessarily able to, but this team has chemistry. When you look at bringing in a number of other players, the way that we discussed with some of the other teams that made a number of acquisitions and added in, you're not saying that it will hurt them. It's just, it could take time for chemistry to develop. It isn't a guarantee when you insert so many new faces into a lineup that it's just automatically going to click. Especially if they played a different style, you're trying to get up on systems, and just that, again, that familiarity and chemistry of knowing where your line mates are going to be, where is your D part are going to be.
It's a new system. I know hockey's all the same, but systems are different in some ways. You have new line mates. Yes, a lot of these guys have played together in some aspect before, but a chemistry is really important on and off the ice. So it's not always a home run if you bring somebody in better. And look no further than the Nashville Predators, who had Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault, and that has not worked out. I'm not saying it's not going to work out in the future. It just hasn't worked out so far.
Very quickly, Kenny's water bottle. The best is when at the end of the meeting, someone asked, why were we here again?
Yeah.
Who asked? Would never have the guts to be able to say, why were we here again? I might think it. I might text it to JT, but
which you never have. Texted.
But bold, Kenny's water bottle, if that's what you throw out at the end of the meeting, although many of us have thought of it.
I would love to be there if you do that. So let me know when your next meeting is.
That's right. A number of questions too about when will Schenn join the team. He's going to join them back here in Winnipeg. I'm not sure if that is going to be on Monday or Tuesday. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. I believe the Jets are scheduled to practice tomorrow.
There's the ice time, but not guaranteed that they will.
Right. I believe the ice time is there, but we'll have to wait and see after the game today whether or not they are taking advantage of the ice time tomorrow, or whether or not it's a day off. But of course, we will have that update for you with Winnipeg Jets on X and so on. And JT, what else do you want to say going into this game just before we wrap things up?
I just think they just keep rolling the way they are. And listen, the amount of respect that the Jets get around the league is from the opposition teams, as you just heard there from Mike Maniscalco, says everything you need to know. Still the best team in the NHL right now. We'll see how this works. But I'm looking forward to seeing how they finish off this road trip. And, I'm clearly more excited about seeing where Luke Schenn fits in this whole thing when he arrives, certainly at practice or in the game situation. But big game today. Nice way to finish off this road trip against Carolina. I think they're still a great hockey team, and this is another one of those measuring sticks games, just for the Winnipeg Jets perspective as well.
Yeah, so you look the most recent wins against Philadelphia, against Jersey. We said that they had outscored them by a combined 10-2. This is their final meeting of the season against Carolina. They won the game at Canada Life Center 3-0 with goals by Niederreiter, Rasmus Kupari, and Neil Pionk. You heard Mike say that he's hoping that the Canes are able to produce a little bit more today on his end from a play-by-play perspective. Obviously, as a Jets fan, you're hoping that the Jets are able to continue to keep the foot on the gas pedal. And this is going to be one of the top power plays going up against one of the top penalty kills as well. So we'll see how special teams plays into this one. But looking forward to this game today on TSN. Also, this upcoming, you are in Winnipeg, and I know a lot of people watching right now and in the chat are Jets fans that are outside of the Manitoba area. But if you are in Winnipeg, they have 2 home games coming up this week. Tuesday against the New York Rangers, so that should be a great one. And then the Dallas Stars, which you do not want to miss. There's going to be a lot of anticipation for that game, both in the building, which the atmosphere should be great because it's a Friday night, but then also just to be able to see how these two teams match up, because there is the possibility that at some point in the postseason, these two teams could cross paths.
Excellent stuff from Sara Lesky in a place we do not know where she is. She's kept it off the list.
But I spent so much time trying. This was the best shot that I could find. Yeah. I spent so much time. I had my laptop set up on recycling bins. Mm-hmm. I had all over trying to do, and this was the best that I could do. So
yeah, you did a better job.
It'll be better.
I got a lot of backlight behind me, which is a no-no in the whole television industry, but we'll figure that out later. And a lot of these lights up here.
Look at you, just good enough on a Sunday, huh? Yeah. Wow.
Hashtag good enough. Enjoy the game, everybody.
Thanks so much, everybody. It's great to see all of you in the chat. We hope that you're going to join us on Tuesday as well. Thanks so much for checking in.